Hey everyone. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. It really helps YouTube recommend more stories like this one to you. All right, let's jump right in.
The first time I smelled it, I thought a raccoon had crawled under the building and died. It was sharp, wet, and sour, like old meat, but somehow sweeter than that, artificial, almost like someone tried to cover rot with cheap air freshener. The kind you'd find in a gas station bathroom, fake cherry, thick and cloying. I didn't think too much of it that first night. I was half asleep and my window was cracked open. Thought it might be trash night or something rotting in the alley. But by the third night, it was clear it wasn't outside. It was coming from inside the walls. Specifically, the apartment next door. My building's old, like 1960s old, with paper-thin walls and warped wood floors that creak even when you're standing still. I rent the bottom left unit, 1A. Next to me is 1B, and whoever lives there, lived there. I hadn't actually seen them. Not once in the 5 months I'd been here. I'd hear them sometimes. Always after midnight. Footsteps that didn't match any walking pattern I've ever heard. Too slow, like one step every 10 seconds. Then silence. Then a dragging sound. Then nothing again. Just silence so thick, it started to make my ears ring. The super told me the guy in 1B was a quiet older man who paid on time and kept to himself. I stopped asking questions after that. The smell got worse on night 4. It hit me the second I stepped into the hallway after work. Like something had been cooking in there all day and died halfway through. I gagged. Legit thought I was going to throw up right there on the carpet. I held my hoodie sleeve over my nose and ran inside. I wanted to report it. I really did. But what was I supposed to say? Hey, I think my neighbor's apartment is rotting. It felt dramatic. Still, I texted the super Ron, just a quick message. Hey, not trying to be a pain, but there's a really strong smell coming from 1B. Just wondering if you could check it out. He didn't respond. The next night, it changed. The smell was still there, but something else joined it. A sound. I was brushing my teeth around 11 when I heard it. At first, I thought it was water running like a faucet had been left on full blast. But the longer I listened, the more it sounded like gurgling, like someone trying to breathe through a blocked throat. It was muffled, but close, like it was coming through the wall behind my bathroom mirror. I leaned in, held my breath, then came the knock. 3 slow, soft taps from the other side of the wall. I dropped my toothbrush in the sink and just stared at the mirror. My heart was pounding so hard, it drowned everything else out. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. It was like my whole body went into freeze mode. Then silence again. Nothing but the soft hum of my bathroom light. I left it on all night. Day 6. I decided to do something. I waited until mid-afternoon, bright outside. People walking dogs, and I knocked on the door to 1B. It was one of those moments where you're 90% sure nothing will happen, but that 10% just eats away at you. I knocked once. Nothing. Knocked again. Louder. The hallway was dead silent. The kind of silence that makes your own breath feel like a scream. I leaned closer. I don't know why. Maybe I expected to hear footsteps or movement, but what I heard was breathing, not soft, not subtle, not like someone standing a few feet away. It was right up against the other side of the door, and it was wet. Heavy, labored, almost bubbly, like whoever was behind that door was drowning in their own lungs. I stepped back fast, almost tripped. That was it for me. I went upstairs, found Ron's unit, and knocked like my life depended on it. No answer. So I left another text. Ron, please. Something's not right in 1B. The smell is unbearable, and I think someone might be sick or worse. I heard breathing through the door. Please check. Still no reply. That night, it seeped into my apartment. The smell. It came in through the vents, under the doors, through the goddamn outlets. No matter how many candles I lit, it wouldn't go away. I slept on the couch with the windows open, hoodie pulled over my nose, but sometime after 3 a.m., I woke up with a start. I didn't know why at first. Then I saw the shadow move past my peephole. I held my breath, waited. Another step. It was slow, barefoot. I could hear the skin stick slightly to the floor with every movement. Whoever it was stopped right outside my door. I didn't move, didn't even blink. Then I heard it, that same gurgling breath, right up against the door. I swear I could hear the saliva moving in their throat. Then the knob turned, slowly, testing it. I hadn't locked it. I lunged through the deadbolt just as the door started to open a crack. I slammed it shut, heart going full earthquake mode, and just stood there, holding the knob with both hands. Whoever was on the other side didn't knock, didn't speak. They just stood there, breathing. Then they left. I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against the door until sunrise. The next morning, I called the police. I know, maybe I should have done that sooner. But you always think you're overreacting until it's too late. They sent an officer, some young guy who looked more bored than concerned. I explained everything, the smell, the breathing, the attempted break-in. He knocked on 1B. No answer. Ron said this unit's been occupied, yeah? I asked. Yep, the cop said, glancing down at his little notepad. Name's Edward Lang. Been here about 14 years. No priors. Well, I said, I think something's seriously wrong. He knocked one more time, then tried the handle. Lock. Then he turned to me. Unless there's reason to believe someone's in immediate danger, I can't force entry. I'll write a report. But you should follow up with the landlord. And just like that, he was gone. That night was the worst. Around 2 a.m., I heard my shower turn on. Not the pipes, the actual water. I got up, heart already racing, and crept to the bathroom with my phone light on. Steam was pouring from the crack under the door. I didn't open it. I couldn't. I just stood there, frozen, listening to the water pounding against porcelain. And something moving inside. Not pacing, not breathing. Slipping. Like wet skin sliding across tile. Then the water stopped. And the smell hit me. So thick and sour it felt like someone was pressing a soaked rag over my face. I backed up into the hallway, and that's when I heard it again from the other side of the wall. Knocking. Slow. Deliberate. And this time it didn't stop at 3. It kept going. Over and over. For minutes, I stood there, shaking, as the knocking echoed through my entire apartment. Then something whispered. I couldn't make out the words. Just the tone. Gurgly. Wet. Like a voice that had been swallowed. That was it. I grabbed my keys and ran out barefoot. I drove to a Denny's and sat there until sunrise. The next morning, I went straight to the leasing office across town. Ron wasn't there, but the receptionist was. She looked confused when I mentioned 1B, Mr. Lang. He's still listed, but he hasn't paid rent in over 2 months. I blinked. So, he's not living there? We're in the process of sending a notice. Ron's supposed to check on him, actually. Why? I just shook my head. You need to check now. She agreed to call maintenance to open it up. I waited in my car outside the building, hands shaking the whole time. When they finally opened 1B, I was watching from the lot. I'll never forget the maintenance guy's face when the door swung open. He didn't step inside. Just stood there, staring, then gagged so hard he fell to his knees. I watched him crawl backward out the door. They called the police. Building was taped off within the hour. I told them everything. They didn't tell me much, but one officer, a woman maybe in her late 30s, gave me a look I'll never forget. She pulled me aside and said quietly, "We found the tenant. He's been deceased for at least 6 weeks. Based on the state of the body, it's been longer than that. But here's the thing. She hesitated. What? She looked around, then leaned in. There was water running in the bathroom. And her voice dropped even lower. There were footprints. Bare ones, all over the floor. I felt my stomach flip. From him? I asked Dot. She didn't answer. Just walked away. Part 2. I didn't go back inside my apartment for 2 days. I stayed at a cheap motel a few blocks away. Thin blankets. Buzzing AC unit. Smelled like cigarettes. But at least nothing knocked on the walls. Nothing breathed through the vents. Nothing touched my door handle in the dark. I kept thinking about what the officer said. 6 weeks. He'd been dead for 6 weeks. Then who the hell was walking around at night? Who tried to open my door? And those footprints. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Wet, bare footprints stamped across the floor of that apartment. Not dried. Not old. Fresh. Like someone had just stepped out of the shower. Or something. On the 3rd morning, around 6 a.m., I finally built up the courage to go back. Not inside, just to pick up some clothes and essentials. The police had cleared the building around midnight, but the yellow tape was still up around 1B. The hallway felt wrong. Silent, but not empty. Like someone was holding their breath, waiting for me to walk past. That damn smell still hung in the air. Faint but present. A ghost of rot. Like it had soaked into the drywall and wouldn't let go. I unlocked my door, reached in, grabbed a duffel bag, and threw in whatever I could. Clothes, charger, toothbrush, without really looking. I didn't want to actually see the place. Didn't want to think about what had crawled through my walls. I was about to leave when I heard it again. 3 slow knocks. I froze. They came from behind me. Not from my door. Not from 1B. From the bathroom wall. The exact same wall that connected to his bathroom. My skin went cold. The air got thick. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. I backed out of the apartment without turning around, slammed the door shut, and practically sprinted to my car. That night, at the Mo. The first time I saw her, I thought she was a mannequin. It was a Sunday morning. Cold, quiet. That weird dead quiet that only happens on suburban streets before the world wakes up. I was standing in our upstairs bathroom, brushing my teeth. Looking out the window like I always do. And across the street, in the window of the house 2 doors down, stood a woman, still, pale, not blinking, just staring straight at our house. At first, I didn't think much of it. That house was being flipped after the last family moved out. Contractors came and went. Maybe she was a cleaner or a stager or something. But the next morning, she was there again. Same window. Same position. Same expression. Just staring. By Wednesday, it started to bother me. Not because she was doing anything, not really. She just stood there, behind the glass, hands at her sides, staring like she was trying to memorize the front of our house. Her clothes never changed. Off-white nightgown. Long sleeves. Looked like it belonged in a hospital or a cult. Her hair was long, dark, and a little tangled at the ends. Her eyes were too far apart. Or maybe too big. I don't know. She looked stretched. A little off, like someone built a woman from memory, but didn't quite get the pieces right. I mentioned it to my wife Leah, over dinner. You ever see that woman in the window across the street? I asked casually, stabbing my salad. Leah looked up. What woman? She's been standing there every morning this week. Not moving. Just watching. She made a face. You sure it's not just a dummy or something? That's what I thought at first. But she blinks, Leah shrugged. Creepy. But not our problem. And that was that. Until she started showing up at night that Friday. Around 1:30 a.m., I got up to grab a glass of water. I passed by the upstairs hallway window on my way back to bed and glanced out. Just a habit. There she was, still in the window. In the dark, no lights on behind her. Just a silhouette lit by the street lamp. Same pose. Same blank stare. I stopped breathing for a second. Something about seeing her at that hour made it worse. Like she was waiting for everyone else to fall asleep. Like she'd been standing there the entire time, watching. I backed away and closed the blinds. Didn't sleep well that night. Saturday. I finally asked the guy who was flipping the house. He was out front in the yard, loading stuff into his truck. I crossed the street with my coffee in hand and gave him a casual nod. Morning. You doing the renovation on 143? Yeah, he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. You got anyone living in there? He gave me a weird look. No, why? I paused. I've just seen someone in the window a few times. Figured it might be one of your crew. He frowned. Nobody should be in there. Place is locked up tight. I hesitated, debating whether to push it. She's in the upstairs front window. Every day. Just standing there. His eyebrows knit together. You sure? I nodded. He didn't say anything for a second. Just looked back at the house. Then he muttered, That's the room where they found her. I blinked. What? The last owner's mom. Lived up there. Had Alzheimer's or something. Wandered out one night in January. They found her frozen to death in the backyard. I stared at him. I thought that family moved out because of the foundation issues, I said. He gave a dry laugh. Nah, they left after that. Said they didn't feel right in the house anymore. I didn't say anything else. Just walked back to mine. Slowly, feeling like my stomach was filled with cold water. That night, Leah saw her too. We were watching TV in bed. Lights off when Leah suddenly sat up, frowning. What's wrong? I asked. She didn't answer. She got up and crossed the room to the window, pulling the curtain back a couple inches. Is that her? She asked softly. I got up and joined her. There she was. In the dark, closer to the window this time. So close. Her forehead almost touched the glass, staring straight at our bedroom. Leah backed away. Nope. She dropped the curtain and went back to bed without another word. I stood there a few seconds longer, staring at the fabric. The way it swayed slightly, like someone outside had just moved. I checked again. She was gone. Started waking up at 3:33 a.m. every single night. No alarm. No noise. Just this internal jolt that ripped me out of sleep like I was being yanked by something unseen. And every time I looked out the window, she was there. Closer. Not in the window anymore. Not even across the street, but standing directly in front of our house. In the grass. Barefoot. Head tilted up toward our bedroom, arms hanging limp at her sides, mouth open like she was trying to speak, but she never did. She just stood there. Watching. By the second week, Leah started having dreams. They're not dreams, she said one morning, pale and shaky. They feel too real. What happens? I asked. I wake up and she's standing at the foot of the bed, just watching. I can't move. I can't scream. She just stands there and stares at me until I blink. And then she's gone. I didn't tell her I'd had the same dream, because it wasn't just a dream. Was awake, and I really did see her, that same night. At 3:33 a.m., I sat up in bed. And she was there. In the corner of our room. Not blinking. Not breathing. Just staring at Leah, like I wasn't even there. The next morning, Leah packed a bag and said she was going to stay at her sister's for a few nights. I love you, she said. But that thing is watching me. I didn't stop her. I wanted to go too, but I had to know what was happening. That night, I stayed up. Sat in the living room with all the lights on, windows locked, blinds shut tight. Nothing happened until 3:33 a.m. The lights flickered once, and then I heard it. A whisper. From the front door. It wasn't words. It was my name, but it was my voice. whispering from the other side, calling me to come open the door. And when I looked out the peephole, she was standing there, mouth open, eyes wide, hands pressed against the wood like she could feel me through it. And for the first time, she smiled. Part 2. I didn't sleep after that. I just sat there on the couch, hands gripping the edges of the cushion, eyes fixed on the front door. She stayed there until sunrise. Didn't knock, didn't speak, didn't move, just stood, nose almost touching the wood, like she was waiting for me to open it. I don't know why I didn't call the cops. Maybe because I knew she wouldn't be there when they showed up. Or maybe because deep down, I knew what I was seeing wasn't normal, and I didn't want them to look at me like I was crazy. Was starting to wonder if I was crazy, but I couldn't deny what I'd seen. That smile. It was burned into my brain. Too wide, too flat, too fake. Like a child drawing a smile on a face. They didn't understand. Leah didn't believe me when I told her what happened. Maybe it's stress, she said over the phone. You haven't been sleeping. You're fixating. I'm telling you, I whispered, pacing our backyard. She smiled this time. It wasn't just watching anymore. It knew I could see it. Leah went quiet. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. I dreamed she smiled at me too. That night, I set up a camera. I dug my old baby monitor out of a box in the garage. Set one half in the living room, facing the front door. The other half I kept with me upstairs. I didn't plan to sleep. But sometime after 2 a.m., I dozed off in bed. Monitor beside me. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember waking up. It was pitch black, silent. Even the air felt still. Like everything in the world had stopped moving. And the monitor, it was making noise. Not static. Not interference. Breathing. Slow, wet, heavy. Someone was in the house. I shot upright and grabbed the monitor, heart in my throat. On screen, my front door. Wide open. No one there. Then movement. From the left side of the frame. Something stepped into view. Bare feet. Long white NIGHTGOWN. She walked slowly, like her bones didn't quite fit together. Like every step was unfamiliar. She didn't look at the camera. She didn't look around. She just walked deeper into the house. Toward the stairs, toward me. I dropped the monitor and grabbed the bat I kept beside the bed. I could barely breathe. My entire body was ice. I forced myself out of the room, bat raised, and crept to the stairs. Empty. I moved step by step. Every creak of the wood feeling louder than a gunshot. I checked the living room, kitchen, bathroom. All empty. The door still locked, deadbolt still engaged, chain still across, but the smell was back. Rotten, sweet, damp, like wet drywall and something that used to be alive. And right there, on the living room floor, a single wet footprint, small, bare, pointing up the stairs. I lost time after that. 3 days, maybe 4, all blurred together. I barely left the house. I didn't eat much. Didn't sleep at all. Every night, 3:33 a.m., she came closer. First at the window, then the front yard, then the porch, then inside. She didn't always move. Sometimes she just stood in the corners, half hidden in shadow, just watching. One night, I tried to talk to her. I don't know what I was thinking. Desperation, exhaustion. I just sat on the couch and said, "What do you want?" She didn't answer. She just opened her mouth, and I heard my mother's voice. Not words, not sentences, just this broken, terrified scream my mom made when she had her stroke. Years ago, a sound I hadn't heard in nearly a decade. I curled into myself and cried like a child. She didn't move. I called Leah the next morning. "I think she's trying to get inside me," I said. There was a long pause. "What?" "I don't mean possess me. Not like a movie. I mean, she wants space inside my life. She's moving into it. One little piece at a time. "You need to leave the house." "I can't." "Why?" "Because she was already in me." That's what I didn't say out loud, because now I was starting to feel her, little things. At first, forgetting words I've used my whole life. I knew something was wrong the first time I heard the screams. They weren't loud, barely audible, honestly, but unmistakable. Short, sharp, wet. Like someone gasping between sobs or choking through a panic attack. They drifted up through the vent in my basement, low and raw, just past 1 a.m. The only problem? They weren't coming from my house. They were coming from Mike's. Mike is my next-door neighbor. A quiet, broad-shouldered guy who wears jeans every day, even in 90-degree weather. Lived here about 10 years longer than me. Doesn't talk much friendly enough, just always seems distracted. Like he's halfway listening to something only he can hear. We share a property line and a retaining wall between our two basements. His basement is maybe 20 feet from mine, separated by cinder block, dirt, and air. And apparently, something or someone was making noise down there. It wasn't the first time I'd noticed weird shit about Mike's basement. For months, I'd seen lumber deliveries, rolls of insulation, cement bags, sheetrock, always at weird hours like 6 a.m. or just before sunset. Never any contractors. Just Mike, quietly unloading material into his garage, then disappearing for hours. Once, I asked him what he was working on. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just fixing the foundation," he said. "Had some shifting down there." That was a lie. I knew that for a fact, because I'd seen him wheel a brand new door into the garage. One of those thick steel security doors with no window. That's not foundation repair. That's sealing something in. After I heard the screams that first night, I stayed still for a long time. Frozen on the basement stairs, lights off, listening with my breath held. They didn't last long, maybe 10 seconds, and then they were gone. Followed by a strange scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged across concrete. Then silence. I waited another hour before going upstairs. The next morning, I went outside and stood near the side fence between our houses. I looked at the windows lining Mike's basement wall. All of them were painted black from the inside. No light. No visibility. Total blackout. He'd covered them up deliberately. Why? The second time I heard it, there was no mistaking what it was. A voice, female, weak, hoarse. "Help me." Barely above a whisper, but it cut through the air like glass. I ran to the vent and pressed my ear against the metal grate. Every hair on my body stood up. "Please," the voice choked. Then something muffled her. Hard, like a hand clamping over her mouth. I shot up and ran to my phone. My hand hovered over 911. But I hesitated. Because what if I was wrong? What if Mike just had the TV on late? What if he had a guest? I told myself I needed more proof. That was 3 weeks ago. And every night since, it's gotten worse. Mike started avoiding me. Before, we'd at least wave at each other in the driveway, maybe talk about the weather. Now, he won't even make eye contact. Last week, I tried to casually bring up the noises. "You doing all right over there?" I asked as we both brought our trash cans to the curb. Heard some late-night hammering. He stiffened. "Working on the basement," he said quickly. "Noise travels. Sorry if it bothers you." I nodded slowly. Sounded like voices, actually. He paused for a second, just a second, then forced a smile. "BLUE-to-OO-to-H speaker. I play podcasts while I work." He turned and walked away before I could say another word. But here's the thing. I looked up every permit filed in our neighborhood in the past year. Mike never filed one. Not for structural work. Not for plumbing. Not for electrical. So whatever he was building down there, he didn't want it on record, and I was starting to think I knew why. 3 nights ago, I made a decision. I was going to find out what the hell was in Mike's basement. I didn't want to break in. That wasn't the plan. I just needed to hear more. Get closer. Confirm what I already knew in my gut. So at around midnight, I went outside with a beer in hand, hoodie on, pretending to take a call. I wandered over toward the side of my property where the houses are closest. The fence there is short, just over waist height, and Mike's basement vent is only a few feet beyond it. I climbed up on a cinder block I'd placed earlier and leaned as far over the fence as I could. I heard it almost immediately, crying. Low, constant, like someone trying to hold it in. The kind of crying that's exhausted and hopeless. Then dash footsteps. Heavy ones. Approaching. The crying stopped. Then a new sound. Something metal creaking open. A door? I held my breath. Then a scream. High-pitched. Ragged. Real. I nearly dropped my beer, but the scream was cut off, like someone had hit her. Then dragging sounds again. Thuds. Movement. Chains maybe? I don't know. I jumped off the cinder block and backed away fast. That night, I slept on the couch with all the lights on. The next day, I called the non-emergency police line. Told them I suspected my neighbor was keeping someone in his basement. They sent 2 officers. Watched from my living room as they knocked on Mike's door. He let them in. 15 minutes later, they left. No arrest. No backup. No one in handcuffs. I went outside to meet them at the curb before they pulled away. So? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. The taller officer gave me a tight-lipped smile. Everything checks out. He showed us the basement. Just construction work. Did you hear anything? No, sir. Not a sound. And the only door down there leads to a storm shelter. Empty. I stared at him. Did you go inside the shelter? We looked. Nothing suspicious. And that was it. They drove off. Mike stepped outside a few minutes later, looked directly at my house, and smiled. Last night was the worst so far. I woke up to a bang. Loud enough to shake my bed. I checked the clock. 2:41 a.m. At first, I thought it came from outside. Maybe a car crash or a transformer blowing. But then I heard it again. Boom. Followed by another scream. And this time, it was a child's voice. Raw and panicked. Please, please, let me out. I stumbled downstairs barefoot, heart hammering, and ran into my basement. I pressed my ear to the vent. I could hear everything, slamming, screaming, something being thrown, and beneath it all, Mike's voice. Low, calm, mumbling something I couldn't make out, almost like he was reciting a prayer or a script. Then a deep metallic clang, like a heavy door being slammed shut. And silence, not just quiet, vacuum silence, like everything had been erased. That's when I decided I'm going down there. I don't care about the cops. I don't care about the consequences. Someone is in that room. And they're running out of time. Tonight I'm going in. I'll finish writing this when I get back. Part 2. I wish I could tell you I had a plan. That I geared up. Brought a flashlight, recorded everything. But I didn't. I just waited until after midnight. Slipped through the side gate and crept across Mike's yard like a coward. Heart pounding, hands sweating. I didn't even know if he was home. But the lights were off. House quiet. Too quiet. I made my way to the basement window. The one that had always been blacked out. But tonight, one sliver of paint had peeled off. Just enough to see a faint red glow, like a heat lamp, but dimmer. Flickering. Almost. That's when I noticed the vent. The metal cover on the side of the foundation wall. It was loose. Barely hanging there. Like something had pushed it from the inside. I stared at it for a second, pulse hammering. Then I got on my knees, grabbed the edge, and pulled. It popped off easier than I expected. Rusty. Corroded. A tunnel of darkness yawned in front of me. Just wide enough to crawl through, and somewhere down that vent, I heard breathing. Not loud, not heavy. Just there. I told myself I'd only go a few feet. Just enough to get a better listen. But once I started crawling, the air changed. Got warmer. Wet. Stale. The smell hit me next, thick, sour, almost metallic. Like old meat and mildew and bleach. The vent sloped downward, deeper into the ground, until finally I slid out onto concrete. I was in the basement. Mike's basement. It took my eyes a minute to adjust. It wasn't finished like he told the cops. No insulation, no drywall, just cold stone walls and hanging bulbs. And in the center of the room, a door, steel, matte black, reinforced hinges. A thick bolt ran across the front, freshly installed. And someone was pounding from the other side. Softly, desperately. Tap, tap, tap. I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to get out. But I couldn't. I walked toward the door. There was a small cutout near the bottom. A square about the size of a cat flap, bolted shut. I knelt and whispered, "Hello?" Silence. Then a voice, small, fragile, shaking. "Are you real?" My throat closed up. "Yes," they whimpered. "Please. Please don't tell him I talked to you. Who are you?" She didn't answer that. She just said, "He said if I'm quiet long enough, he'll let me out." I felt sick. "How long have you been in there?" No answer. I reached up, hand trembling, and tried the bolt. Locked. Not just locked, welded. The metal was fused together like someone had taken a torch to it. "No one's coming," she whispered. "They never do." Then footsteps. Upstairs. Heavy, measured. Mike was home, and he wasn't alone. I dove behind a stack of old furniture just as the basement door creaked open. He came down slowly, each step echoing. I peeked through a crack in the wood. Mike looked different. Not angry, not panicked. Calm. Too calm. He walked straight to the door, knelt down, pressed his ear to the slot. Listened. Then said, in a voice so soft it chilled me, "She talked to you, didn't she?" I didn't move. "I know she did," he said. "She always does, right before she tries to leave." He stood up. "You think she's trapped," he said, still not turning around. "But she's not." Then he did something I didn't expect. He unbolted the door. It creaked open slowly, revealing a pitch-black chamber. I couldn't see anything inside, but I felt it. I was only supposed to stay a month, just until my lease started at the new place across town. One of those annoying gaps in timing where you're stuck couch surfing or throwing all your stuff into a sketchy Airbnb while pretending it's fine. So when I found the sublet in that old brick building on Mercer, it felt like a lucky break. Cheap, furnished, month to month. The guy before me bailed, mid-lease, and left everything behind: plates, towels, even a half-used bottle of shampoo in the shower. Bit gross, yeah, but I didn't care. I moved in on a Thursday. By Saturday, I stopped sleeping. The first time I heard him, it was 3:02 a.m. A single step creaked out in the hallway, then silence. I was lying in bed with the window cracked, listening to a podcast to drown out the creaks and groans of the building. Thought it might have been a neighbor coming home late. Nothing weird. But then came the second step. Slow, measured, like whoever it was wasn't walking so much as pacing. By the fourth step, I paused the podcast and sat up. It was dead quiet in the hall outside. And then came the sound that still sticks in my brain: call on breathing. Not fast, not panicked. Just intentional, like someone was standing right outside my door, breathing in slowly, holding it, and exhaling through their nose. I checked the peephole. The hallway was empty. But I swear to you, I could feel someone on the other side. The next night, it happened again. 3 a.m. on the dot. The footsteps started. Same pace, same weight. Then they stopped in front of my door, and I heard a knock. 3 soft taps. Not urgent, not random. Polite. I didn't move. Just sat there in bed, staring at my door like it might open itself. After a few minutes, I checked the peephole again. Still empty. No retreating footsteps, no doors opening, nothing. Just the hall light buzzing overhead. That Monday, I asked the super, an old guy named Wendell, If anyone lived in 2B dot, he looked up from his crossword and squinted. That one? Yeah, I said. Across the hall from me. Oh, yeah, that's Mr. Bell's unit. Mr. Bell, I repeated. He nodded. Been there a long time. Pays on time. Never bothers anyone. I hesitated. Have you seen him? Like recently? Wendell shrugged. Not in years. That stopped me. What do you mean? He set his pen down. Look, this building's weird. Not dangerous, just old. You'll hear stuff. Pipes groan, floorboards pop. That's all it is. But I'm telling you, someone knocks on my door every night at 3. Wendell gave me a look like I was making a joke he didn't get. He didn't say anything else. By the end of the week, I was unraveling. Every night at 3, exactly, he came out. Walked the same path. Always barefoot. I could hear the skin stick to the tile with each step. Stopped at my door. Knocked 3 times. Sometimes I waited, staring through the peephole until my eyes watered. One night, I tried to catch him. I set an alarm for 2:58 a.m. and waited just inside the door. When the steps started, I flung it open without thinking. The hallway was empty. No footsteps. No door closing. No movement. Just a smell I hadn't noticed before. Damp, metallic, sharp, like rust and old sweat. I slammed the door shut and locked every bolt. That was the first night I heard him speak. Not loud. Not angry. Just a whisper through the crack at the bottom of the door. Wrong key. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I went across the hall. 2B. Looked like every other door. Beige. Scratched. A dent at the bottom like someone kicked it once. Hard. I knocked. No answer. I pressed my ear against the wood and listened. Nothing. But the knob turned under my hand. Not all the way, just enough to click. It was unlocked. I stood there frozen for a full minute before backing away. Whatever was in that apartment wasn't asleep. It was waiting. 2 days later, I heard someone else walking in the hallway at night. Not 3 a.m. Earlier, around 11. Lighter steps. Quicker. Then a knock. Not at my door at 2B. I got out of bed and peeked through the peephole. It was a girl. Mid-20s maybe. Blonde bun. Hoodie and leggings. She looked nervous, checking over her shoulder like someone might see her. She knocked again. Whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she reached for the doorknob. Don't. I whispered. She turned like she'd heard me. Our eyes met through the peephole. I couldn't say anything else. I just shook my head slowly. She stared for a second, then let go of the knob and walked away. I never saw her again. But the next night, the 3 a knee knock came louder. Harder. Like whoever was inside. 2B was angry I'd stopped them. I finally searched the building's public records. Apartment 2B had been leased to a Malcolm Bell, born 1959, lease signed in 1981. No forwarding address. No move out date. Just a long, uninterrupted residency. 40-3 years. I tried to find anything else. News articles, obituaries, eviction notices. Nothing. It was like he'd been forgotten by time. That night, something changed. I stayed up again, pacing the living room, waiting for the usual routine. 3 a.m. came. No footsteps. No knock. Just silence. I stared at the door for 10 full minutes. Heart hammering. Then came the sound of a lock clicking open. From inside my apartment, I turned slowly, expecting to see the front door swinging open. But it wasn't the front door. It was the hallway closet. One I'd never opened. The one I thought was stuck shut. It creaked open, inch by inch, and a cold wave of air hit me in the chest. And in that dark, narrow space, a man's voice whispered, "You're on the wrong side of the door." Part 2. I don't remember deciding to move. I don't remember crossing the room or grabbing my shoes. or even breathing. All I remember is backing away from that closet slow, shaking, every part of me screaming to run while the door finished creaking open by itself, the air pouring out of that narrow space was colder than winter, thick, heavy, like breath you could feel on your skin. Forced myself to look inside. Nothing, just darkness. Empty and shallow, only a few feet deep. No man. No footprints. No place to hide. But the voice. The voice was still in my ear, like it had been whispered directly into my skull. I slammed the closet door and threw every lock on the front door. It didn't matter, because the locks weren't for him. The locks were for me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with every light on, wrapped in a blanket, gripping my phone like it was a weapon. Nothing else happened. Not until 3:33 a.m. That's when the footsteps started. Not outside. Above. And me. Slow, heavy, dragging across the ceiling. He was in the upstairs unit. 2B. But the rhythm was wrong this time. No steady pacing. No soft approach toward my door. He was walking in circles. Long, wide circles. Over and over and over. Like he was tracing something. Mapping something. Preparing. Every few minutes, the steps would stop directly over the doorway connecting 2B to my apartment below. He wasn't knocking this time. He was waiting. At sunrise, the footsteps stopped. Just cut off mid-step. Silence. I waited until 9 a.m. before opening my front door, half expecting someone to be standing out there. Instead, I found something else. A key. Old, rusted, bent at the end. Sitting dead center on the doormat. Tied to it with twine was a scrap of paper. 4 words, written in shaky, almost childlike handwriting. You dropped this last time. My body locked up, because I'd never seen that key in my life, and I had never been upstairs. That day, I confronted Wendell again. He was in the lobby, fiddling with the radiator. I want you to tell me the truth about 2B, I said. He didn't look up. I told you what I know. Wendell, I said, stepping closer. Someone is in that apartment. Someone who only comes out at night. Someone who leaves things at my door. Wendell's shoulders tightened. That's not possible. Why not? Because Mr. Bell doesn't have visitors. Then who the hell is? Because Mr. Bell died in 2011. The radiator hissed. So did the air around me. I swallowed hard. You said he's still a tenant. Wendell sighed, old and tired. He is, as far as the building's records go. So he died here? I asked. In the apartment, Wendell said quietly. In the closet. They didn't find him for months. The smell. Well, you don't forget something like that. The closet. My closet. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. But they cleaned it, right? I asked, desperate. They changed the locks? Repainted? Something? Wendell shook his head. Whole place is grandfathered. Can't change the structure. Can't alter the layout. 2B is exactly as it was when it was built. I stared at him. And the closets? They're all connected, he said. Originally for maintenance access. They sealed them decades ago, but the walls are still thin. Connected. Every closet in the building. His words hit me like ice water. If 2B's closet was where Bell died, then my closet was the other side of the same wall. The same air. The same darkness. I should have packed. Should have left instantly. But something twisted inside me. Some paranoid part of my brain needed proof. Needed to know what was real and what was in my head. So at 11:47 that night, I killed the lights, sat on the floor next to my closet, and waited. The building settled. Pipes groaned. Cars passed outside. And at exactly 3 a.m., the footsteps began, above me. Slow, measured, circling. Then they stopped. This time, directly above my closet, the air shifted. Cold trickled in around my ankles, like someone had opened a freezer door. I leaned in closer to the closet door, swallowing hard. "Hello?" I whispered. A pause. Then, wrong key. I jolted backward so fast, I hit the wall. My hands shook violently. But I forced myself to look. Forced myself to reach out. I grabbed the rusty key from the coffee table. The one left on my doormat. My brain screamed to stop. But something deeper, something colder pushed me forward. Slid the key into the closet lock and turned. Clicked. The door eased open an inch. Cold air poured out. Then the day the old man offered my son candy, I thought it was just weird. Not dangerous. Not threatening. Just the kind of awkward, vaguely uncomfortable thing people do when they don't know how to talk to kids. We were walking back from the mailbox, me and my 6-year-old, Tyler. He was wearing his Spider-Man hoodie, dragging a stick behind him like it was a sword. Typical Saturday morning stuff. And then Mr. Becker came out. He lives next door. Or I guess I should say lived, because I don't know where he is now, or if he's even still alive. But that morning, he stepped out onto his porch like he'd been waiting for us. He smiled wide. Yellow teeth, too many wrinkles in all the wrong places, and said, "Morning." I nodded politely. "Hey there." Then he looked at Tyler and said, "Would you like some candy, little man?" I tightened my grip on Tyler's hand. "No, thanks," I said quickly. "We're good." Becker chuckled. And then he said something that made my stomach turn. "Well, you already took some the other day, didn't you?" Tyler stopped walking. I looked down at him. He looked confused. Not scared, not guilty. Just confused, and he said, "No, I didn't." Becker's smile never changed. He just tilted his head and said, "Sure you did. You came right up to the porch and took a red one, I remember. You said you liked cherry." I felt this cold pinch in my chest, because we don't let Tyler wander. Ever. Our front yard is fenced. Our doors have alarms. And Mr. Becker's house? That place has always given me a bad feeling. Something about the curtains always drawn. The flicker of a TV on at 3 a.m. The way he talks too slowly, like he's choosing every word. I looked at Tyler again. "You've never been over there, right?" He shook his head immediately. "No, I promise." I turned back to Becker. "Maybe you're thinking of another kid." He didn't answer right away, just smiled, then said, "They always say that after." And then he went back inside. I tried to let it go. Maybe he's old, confused. Maybe he saw a kid that looked like Tyler from his window and got it mixed up. But something about the way he said it. After what? That night, I asked Tyler again. Calmly, gently, "You sure you never went near his house? Even by yourself?" He frowned. "I don't like his porch." "Why?" He shrugged. "It smells like crayons and wetwood." I blinked. "Crayons?" "Yeah, like the kind at the bottom of my backpack." That answer made me uneasy in a way I couldn't explain, because that's exactly how I'd describe the smell that drifted into our yard every time Becker opened his door. Sweet. Synthetic. Damp. Like something trying to pretend it was inviting. 2 days later, I caught Tyler staring out the window. It was just after 3 p.m., right when the sunlight hits Becker's porch just right. "What are you looking at?" I asked. Tyler didn't answer right away. Then he pointed. There was something sitting on the porch steps. A red piece of candy. Not wrapped. Just placed there like bait. Tyler whispered. "That wasn't there a minute ago." That night, I installed a camera facing the side yard. Motion triggered. Night vision. The whole deal. I told myself it was just to feel better. Just in case, but deep down, I already knew I'd see something. Part 2. The camera caught something on the second night. At first, just static. The usual flicker from wind blowing through the trees, bugs flying close to the lens. I sat on the couch, scrubbing through footage, half asleep until the timestamp hit 2:14 a.m. And then, I saw him. Mr. Becker. stepping out onto his porch in nothing but a thin, white undershirt and slacks. No shoes. No cane. Just standing there. He looked wrong, like he wasn't entirely awake, or like something was moving him. He walked slowly to the edge of his porch and crouched. That alone was weird. He always had a bad back, always moved stiffly. But here, he moved like a puppet with new strings. Smooth, silent. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of candy. Red, unwrapped, sticky. He placed it on the ground, right at the edge of his property. Just close enough that if a kid were to reach through the fence, they could grab it. Then he stood and stared directly at the camera, not like he noticed it, like he already knew it was there. Like he was looking through it. At me, I slammed my laptop shut. Didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, the candy was gone. I asked Tyler if he'd taken it. He looked at me like I was crazy. No, you told me not to go near it. I did, I said carefully. And you listened, right? He nodded. But there was something in his eyes. A flicker of doubt, or maybe guilt. That night I moved the camera closer to the fence, angled it low, toward the spot Becker always left the candy. And just before bed, I checked the backyard one more time. Empty, but something had changed. The grass around that spot, flattened. Like someone had been standing there. Not Becker. Smaller. At 1:17 a.m. The motion sensor went off again. I was watching live this time. Becker didn't come out, but something else did. From under his porch, a shape, small, thin, Tyler's height. It moved on all fours, fast, like an animal. But the limbs were wrong. Too long, too smooth. Like it was wearing a child's skin, like a costume that didn't fit right. The thing crawled across the yard and stopped right where Becker always left the candy. Then it stood up. That's when I saw its face. For a moment, it was Tyler's, until it blinked. The eyes turned completely black, the mouth opened too wide, and it smiled, too knowingly, too adult. Then it whispered, without moving its lips, "He already took some." I slammed the power off and ran to Tyler's room. He was still in bed, still breathing, but his hands were sticky. Red. The next day, I went to confront Becker, but the house was empty. Not moved out, empty. Not vacant, empty. Abandoned. Like no one had been living there for years. Dust covering every surface, mold on the walls, furniture decayed, sun-bleached. The smell hit me like a punch to the throat. Crayons and wet wood. Stumbled out of there and called the police. They investigated. And here's the thing that still makes my skin crawl. Mr. Becker died in 2019. Heart failure. Body found inside the house. I saw the photos. Same porch. Same chair. He'd been sitting there when he passed, holding a piece of red candy. Tyler doesn't sleep well anymore. He started talking in his dreams. Soft little mumbles like he's having full conversations. Sometimes I hear my name, other times I hear, "I already took some." The pediatrician says it's night terrors. I know better. Something got in. Something used that old man's shape, his house. His voice. Something offered my son candy, and he said yes, just once. That's all it needed. Last night, I found another piece, sitting in Tyler's closet, unwrapped. Sticky. Waiting. And I swear to God, it's still warm. The first time she knocked, I almost didn't answer. It was late. Not getting dark late, but the kind of late where everything outside feels hollow and wrong. 11:47 p.m., a weeknight. Too late for visitors. Too late for anything normal. But she kept knocking. 3 soft taps. A 10-second pause. 3 more. Like a rhythm she'd practiced. I finally cracked the door open, and she was standing there on my porch. Barefoot, hair damp, wearing a pale blue dress that looked outdated. Like something a kid would wear in the 90s. Except she was clearly in her late 20s. She smiled too quickly, like she was afraid I'd shut the door on her. "Hi," she said. "I grew up in the house next door." I stared at her. The house next door had been empty for the last 2 months, abandoned after the divorce, meltdown that made the neighborhood group chat explode. Before that, the owners lived there forever. A quiet older couple. No kids. Not a single one. I knew this girl was lying the moment she spoke, but she kept smiling, waiting for something. Waiting for me. I finally said, I don't think. She cut me off. I just want to see my old room, she blurted, too fast. Just for a minute. I won't touch anything. Her eyes flicked past me, toward my living room. Toward the window facing the empty house next door. Something in my chest tightened. Miss, I said carefully, I'm really sorry, but no one lived there before the Martins. They didn't have kids. Her smile didn't change, but her eyes did. Something pulled tight behind them. A tension, a twitch, like a string snapping inside her skull. Oh, she said, still smiling. I must be remembering wrong. She didn't turn to leave. She just stood there, smiling, waiting. It took everything. I had not to slam the door in her face. Instead, I nodded awkwardly, muttered, "Have a good night," and shut the door. I locked it. Then I double-locked it, because something about her smile felt like a mask. Someone forgot how to hold up. I didn't sleep well. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see her standing on the porch, head tilted too far to one side, dress dripping, feet dirty, smiling like she didn't understand what a smile meant. Around 2:30 a.m., I finally got up for water. That's when I saw it. A faint glow through my kitchen blinds, coming from the house. Next door. The empty house. The house with no electricity. The house, she said. She grew up in. Lights. Moving. Pacing. Like someone was walking from room to room holding a lantern. I froze. I should have called someone. The police. The owner. Anybody. But instead, I walked closer to the window. Slowly. Quietly, the lights moved faster. Then stopped. In the upstairs bedroom, the one facing my kitchen window, something was standing there. A silhouette. Still. Watching. I backed away from the blinds, so fast I tripped on the rug. I waited in the dark, holding my breath, staring at the window. The light in the room went out. And whatever, was up there, never came down. The next morning, I convinced myself it was squatters. That girl must have snuck in after all. Maybe she did live there at some point, and the Martins just never mentioned the daughter. Who knows? People hide shit. But the lie sat wrong in my chest, like something stuck in my lungs. I walked next door to check. The house looked dead. Windows dusty, grass overgrown. Mailbox stuffed. I knocked. Nothing. Tried the door. Locked. Peered through the window. Not recently moved out. Empty, but vacant. Stripped. Bare floors. Floors. Peered through the window. Locked. Rendo. Empty. Not recently moved out. No curtains. No light fixtures. No footprints in the dust. No sign anyone had stepped inside in months. So who turned on the lights last night? That evening, I told my sister about the girl. She laughed at first. You need to stop watching creepy TikToks before bed. I'm serious, I said. Something's off with her. Did she threaten you? No. Did she break in? No. Then she's probably just confused. She paused, or hi. But that wasn't it. Confused people don't stare at you like they're memorizing the shape of your face. They don't talk in perfect rhythms. They don't show up barefoot on a cold night wearing a dress from a decade they weren't alive in. And they definitely don't appear in empty houses with no power. My sister told me to let it go. I tried. But late that night, 11:47 p.m. again, the knocking started. Same rhythm. Same soft taps. Same voice on the other side. Can I come in? I need to see my room. This time, I didn't open the door. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, hand on the deadbolt, staring. The knocking stopped. Then, the handle turned. Slowly. Quietly. Patiently. Like she wasn't trying to force her way in, just waiting for me to realize she could. Then her voice came through the door. Not muffled, not distant, right at the keyhole. "I remember you," she whispered. "You used to wave to me from your window." My heart stopped. "I'm not who you think I am," I whispered back. Before I could stop myself, silence. Then a soft laugh, not a girl's laugh, a woman's. A woman too old to be wearing that dress, too old to speak like a child, too old to act like she belonged in that house. "You're not who you think you are either," she said. Her hand slid down the door, and she walked away, bare feet brushing against the concrete like leaves, blowing across a sidewalk. I didn't sleep again. I sat on the couch with every light on, hugging a blanket, listening for anything outside. Around 3:30 a.m., I finally dozed off, only to wake to a soft tapping noise. Not at my door, at my bedroom window. Froze. The tapping came again. 3 taps. Then a pause. Then 3 more. Same rhythm, same pattern. I crawled across the floor, too scared to stand, and slowly lifted one corner of the blind. She was there, on the lawn, between our houses. Her back to me, staring up at the window of the empty house. Standing completely still, dress swaying in the wind that wasn't blowing. Dark hair dripping down her back, like she'd just come in from the rain, except it hadn't rained in days. And her feet. Her feet weren't touching the ground. She was floating an inch above the grass. Just suspended. Waiting. Searching. Remembering something that had never happened. Remembering me. At 4:12 a.m. She turned. Slowly. Her neck bending further than it should. Her eyes found my window. Instantly, like she already knew I was there. She smiled. The same too quick, too wide smile from the porch. Then she mouthed something. Just 2 words, but I understood them perfectly. "Come home." I slammed the blinds shut. My hands shaking so hard I could barely breathe, because I suddenly understood. Something that made my stomach twist. She didn't think the house next door was her childhood home. She thought I was. She thought I belonged to her. And she wasn't going to stop until I believed it too. Part 2, the next morning. I packed a bag. I didn't care if it made sense. I didn't care if it sounded paranoid. Something was happening. Something. Old and slow and patient. And I wasn't going to wait around to find out what it wanted. I booked a hotel on the other side of town. Told myself I'd come back in a few days when my head was clear, when I could explain everything with logic. But that's not what happened. Because that night, she followed me. The knock came at 11:47 p.m. Hotel room door. Same rhythm. 3 soft taps. A pause. 3 more. My heart dropped into my stomach. This was miles away from the neighborhood. No one knew I was here. I didn't even give my real name at check-in. I crept toward the door, slow and silent. Then I heard her voice, muffled but unmistakable. "I remember the blue sheets and the poster on your ceiling." I staggered back, because I'd had blue sheets as a kid, and a glow-in-the-dark solar system poster on my bedroom ceiling. In my childhood home. But not in this house, not in the neighborhood, not in this life. My legs gave out, and I sank to the floor. Then, from the hallway. "I used to stand outside your room and watch you sleep. You used to wave to me." My breath caught, because I did wave to someone. When I was 5, maybe 6. At night, when the shadows would stretch across my ceiling just right, I'd wave toward the doorway before falling asleep, thinking I was being funny. My parents said it was a phase, said kids imagine things, but I never told anyone. Not even them. She knocked again, but not on the door, on the closet. I spun around. The hotel closet door rattled, just slightly. The handle turned left, then right. A small shake. A pause. Then her voice again, closer this time, like it was inside the room now. "I don't belong out there. I belong where I used to be. Let me in." I blacked out. No exaggeration. 1 second I was staring at the closet door. The next, it was morning, and I was curled in the bathtub, ice cold, phone dead, heart racing, I checked the closet. It was open. Empty. But the carpet in front of it was damp. Like someone had stood there dripping for hours. I went back home that afternoon. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to. Because if this thing was tied to me, if it was anchored to something in my past, then maybe the house next door held the answer. Maybe there was a reason she said she grew up there. And maybe I'd let her in somehow. A long time ago, without realizing it. The house was still vacant, still locked. But the back window was cracked open, like someone wanted me to come in. The air inside was stale and wet, like rotting drywall and old breath. I stepped carefully through the kitchen. The counters were dusty, but there were footprints in the grime. Barefoot. Leading toward the stairs. I followed them. Up. Toward the second floor. Every step creaked like it was warning me. Don't go. Don't remember. Don't open the door. But I did. The bedroom at the end of the hall was the one that always faced my kitchen window. The one she stood in that first night. The footprints ended there. I pushed the door open. The walls were blue, faded, cracked, but unmistakably the same blue I had in my childhood room. And the ceiling, still faintly visible in the peeling paint. Stars, planets. I wouldn't have thought anything of it if I hadn't gotten the text. It was 7:14 p.m. Early June, that kind of thick. Golden light stretching across the backyard, like it wanted to stay just a little longer before night fell. I was watering the garden when I got the message from my neighbor. Kim, hey. Just FYI, we're driving to Vermont tonight. Won't be back till Sunday. If you see the porch lights come on, it's just the timer. Totally normal. They'd mentioned the trip earlier that week. She just wanted to make sure I didn't think someone was breaking in. I replied with a thumbs up and a have fun. 10 minutes later, I heard screaming coming from their backyard. Not a startled yell. Not kids playing. Not a movie, a real scream, high-pitched, terrified, trapped. I froze. Hose still running. It came again, louder this time. Not words. Just this raw, desperate sound, like someone was trying to rip their own voice out of their throat. I dropped the hose and walked to the edge of the yard. The scream had come from their shed. Their weird, old wooden shed with the rusted metal roof and padlock on the front that hadn't been touched in years. It sat in the far back corner of their yard, nearly hidden by overgrown hedges. I couldn't see the door from my side. Just the slanted roof, a cracked window, and the faintest movement of light flickering behind it. Someone was in there. Someone was screaming. I called Kim immediately, straight to voicemail. Called her husband, Matt, same thing. Left a message. Hey, I just heard screaming from your shed. I know you're out of town, but call me. I stood there with the phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding, the scream still ringing in my memory. Then silence, completely still. No light, no voice, no movement. Like it never happened. That night, I kept staring out my bedroom window at their backyard. Nothing moved. I told myself it was a cat, a raccoon, maybe a teenager messing around. Except the scream didn't sound like an animal. It sounded like someone begging to be let out. The next day, I walked over. Their backyard was quiet, still overgrown. Nothing looked out of place except the shed window. It was open about 2 inches. I looked closer. There were scratch marks on the inside of the frame. Like fingernails had clawed at it. My stomach turned. Went back home and paced for over an hour, trying to talk myself out of doing anything. Calling the cops felt extreme. What would I even say? But at 6:47 p.m., I heard something again. Not a scream this time. Whimper. Low, guttural, choked. Then the sound of something slamming against wood. I stood at the back door, frozen, staring at that shed. Then I did something I'll probably regret forever. I grabbed my spare flashlight, climbed over the fence, and walked across their yard toward the shed. The air got colder the closer I got. That kind of temperature drop that doesn't feel natural. Like stepping into a basement with the power cut. The padlock on the shed door was still there, but the latch wasn't locked. It had been looped, not secured. Almost like someone wanted it to look locked. My hand shook as I lifted the latch and opened the door. The light from outside barely touched the inside. The smell hit me instantly: mold, rust, and something sharp underneath. Like meat left in a sealed bag too long. I clicked on the flashlight and stepped in. It was small, dusty. Tools hung on hooks along the wall. A broken chair in the corner. A workbench that hadn't been touched in years. And then a hatch. Right in the middle of the floor. Crouched down. The hatch was old. Metal with a thick rope handle looped through a rusted ring. Scrape marks all around it. Fresh, like it had been pulled open. Recently. Or tried to be. The air around it smelled worse. Heavier. Like the inside of a mouth that had stopped breathing. I reached for the handle, then stopped because I heard it again, right beneath. And me. Breathing. Ragged. Wet. Weak. So close I could almost feel it through the floorboards. And then a voice whispered, "Help." Just one word. Small, broken, but real. Someone was down there. I stumbled out of the shed, nearly dropped my flashlight, and sprinted back home. I called the police. I told them everything. The screams, the open window, the voice. They sent a car. 2 officers walked the yard, checked the shed, shined flashlights through the hatch crack, but never opened it. They told me there was no clear sign of forced entry and no cause for a warrant without probable cause. I kept saying someone was down there. They said it might have been a prank, or an animal, or your imagination, sir. They left after 20 minutes, and the hatch? Still shut. Still breathing. Part 2. The second the cops pulled away, I went back. I didn't even go inside first. Just grabbed gloves, a pry bar, and my flashlight, and climbed over the fence again. I don't know what I thought I'd find. I just knew I couldn't let it go. That voice, that whisper of help, was still echoing in my chest like a second heartbeat. I stepped inside the shed. Same smell. Same cold, but the air felt heavier now, like it was pushing against me. Like the walls were trying to keep me out. I dropped to my knees in front of the hatch, slipped on the gloves, and wedged the pry bar under the edge. It groaned. Loud. Louder than I thought it would. Like the wood and metal had fused with something deeper, but I kept pulling. The hinges shrieked. And then it opened. The smell hit me like a wall. Rot, mold, iron. Blood. I dropped the bar and gagged, backing up fast. Tried to breathe through my mouth. Tried to keep it together. The hole beneath the hatch was just wide enough to crawl through. A dirt tunnel, about 3 feet in diameter, sloping down into darkness. No stairs. No ladder. Just earth, and air that hadn't moved in years. I leaned in, shined the flashlight down. Nothing. Just a long, slanted crawl space disappearing into black. And then the whisper again, closer this time. "Don't leave me." I should have called the cops again. Should have filmed it. Documented everything, but I didn't. I dropped to my stomach, gritted my teeth, and slid in. The dirt was cold and damp under my elbows. The tunnel sloped down for what felt like 30, maybe 40 feet. The light barely reached ahead of me. And then it opened up, a crawl space, wide enough to crouch in, and in the center of it, slumped against the wall, a woman. She was barely breathing, clothes torn, caked in dirt, face hollow, bruised, skin pale and clammy like she hadn't seen daylight in weeks. She didn't look at me, didn't flinch. Just whispered again, "He said you'd come." I froze. What? Her eyes flicked toward me, clouded, dull. He always sends someone after the second scream. I didn't know what to say. I crawled closer, flashlight shaking in my hands. Who did this to you? I asked. How long have you been down here? She blinked slowly. Too long. I swallowed hard. Okay, I'm gonna get you out of here. Just hang on. But as I reached for her, she flinched hard. Her whole body jerked back like a marionette on a string. Can't bring me up, she said. He's still watching. A sound echoed behind me, a dull clunk. Then another. The hatch. It was closing. Turned and scrambled toward the tunnel. But I could already see the edges of light disappearing. I climbed as fast as I could, choking on panic. By the time I reached the top, it was shut. Completely. I slammed my fist against it, yelled, screamed. No response. Just dirt and metal and that same creeping cold. I dropped back down, flashlight beam shaking. Who's watching you? I asked, but the woman was gone. Not moved. Gone. Vanished like she'd melted into the wall. I spun in circles, shining the light in every direction, breath ragged. There was no one there. No bones. No clothes. No footprints. Just the echo of my own panic, bouncing off the dirt walls. I climbed back up again, used the pry bar to shove the hatch open with everything I had. This time, it gave easily. Too easily. Like it had never been sealed at all. Like it had wanted me to come down. I stumbled into the shed, gasping for fresh air, and slammed the hatch shut behind me, nailed it closed. I didn't look back. Kim and Matt came home 2 days later. I met them in their driveway before they could even unpack. Told them what I'd seen, what I'd heard, what I'd done. I expected shock. Denial. Maybe anger, but they just looked at each other. Then Kim said, almost too calmly, you shouldn't have opened it. They called a contractor the next morning and had the entire shed torn down. No explanation. No cleanup. Just razed to the ground. When I asked them why, Matt said, it wasn't ours to open. And that was it. It's been 3 weeks. The backyard is empty now. No shed. No hatch. Just a patch of grass that never seems to grow right. But some nights, around 7:14 p.m., I hear it again. From beneath the earth. A whisper. Not begging. Not panicked. Just waiting. Don't leave me. Sometimes I dream about her face. Sometimes it's my own. She looked normal in the pictures. That's what I keep telling myself. Brown hair, shoulder length. Pale blue hoodie. Faded jeans. A black duffel bag on the floor beside her. Just a woman, standing in the doorway of our little guest house like she belonged there. But in real life, something was off from the second she arrived. Not her appearance. She looked exactly like the pictures. It was her eyes. They were wrong. Not in the color, not even the shape, but in the way they didn't move, didn't flicker, didn't wander, didn't blink. She didn't blink. At all. We rent out the guest house behind our property, a little detached studio with a kitchenette and bathroom. I listed online short-term, traveling nurses, grad students, solo travelers. It's private, quiet, safe. Her name was Marla, or at least that's what she wrote on the form. No reviews, but she sent a polite message, said she was between jobs, needed a place for a week, maybe 2. Offered to pay up front in cash. She looked clean, calm, the kind of quiet that made you feel like you didn't need to worry about her. But when she stepped out of the car and we shook hands, her eyes locked onto mine and didn't move. Not once. She didn't glance at the yard, didn't glance at the door, didn't even look down to grab her bag. She just stared. That first night, I watched from the kitchen window as she sat on the porch of the guest house. Just sat. Not on her phone, not reading, not eating. Just staring straight ahead, like she was watching something I couldn't see. Lights off behind her. Body perfectly still. Eyes wide open. No blinking. I timed her for 20 full minutes before I had to look away. The next morning, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Some people have tics, anxiety, maybe trauma. Who knows? I walked over with a box of muffins, just being neighborly, and knocked on the guest house door. No answer. I knocked again. Then heard a voice, "Come in." Something about it chilled me. Not the tone. It was soft, even polite. But there was no inflection. Like someone reading from a script they didn't understand. I pushed the door open. Marla was sitting at the table in the exact same clothes she arrived in. Still hands folded. Eyes on mine the second the door opened, like she already knew. Exactly when I'd walk in, I held out the muffins. She didn't move, didn't look down at the box, didn't react at all. "Thought you might want breakfast," I offered. She blinked. No. Wait, she didn't. She just shifted, like a puppet being pulled 1 inch to the left. Then she said, "I don't eat when I'm alone." That voice again, robotic, not right. I set the box on the table and backed away. "Well, if you need anything," I mumbled. She smiled, too wide, too even. Not a single wrinkle anywhere on her face. "I know." I left the door open behind me. The next night, I woke up at 2:13 a.m. and looked out the bedroom window. Without knowing why, she was standing in our backyard, not walking, not stretching, just standing, facing our house, completely still, eyes wide, open. No blinking. Just watching. I told my husband the next morning. He laughed it off. "Some people are just weird," he said. "She's probably harmless." But I could tell he was unnerved too. He started keeping the back door locked. We never usually did that. Around day 4, I went to take the trash out and saw her again. This time sitting on the steps, back perfectly straight. Eyes locked on our kitchen window. I ducked down, peeked through the blinds. She didn't flinch, didn't look around. Just stared at the glass like she was trying to see through it. Like she already knew I was watching, and the whole time. She never blinked. That night, she knocked on our door. It was around 9 p.m. We were finishing dinner. Both of us froze. I answered. She stood in the doorway, smiling. "Do you have a basement?" I blinked. "What?" She tilted her head. Not like she was curious, like she was trying to copy the gesture. "Do you have a basement?" "Why? I want to know what it feels like to be underground." My throat went dry. "No," I lied. "No basement." She stared at me for a long time, then smiled wider. "You should get one." And walked away that night. I told my husband we needed to ask her to leave. He agreed, but we never got the chance, because the next morning, she was gone. Part 2 by the time we realized she was gone. Her car had already vanished from the driveway. No engine noise, no door slam. She just disappeared sometime before sunrise. My husband shrugged it off. "Maybe she left early," he said. "She paid through Friday, whatever, she's gone." But she hadn't taken her duffel bag, or her clothes, or the muffins I'd dropped off. And something about the air around the guest house felt wrong. Like the quiet wasn't just silence, but something missing. Waited until he left for work before going inside. The first thing I noticed was the temperature. It was cold. Not forgot to turn the heater on. Cold. This was basement cold. Grave cold. The kind of cold that clings to your skin and doesn't warm up even after you leave. The windows were locked. The blinds half closed. The air felt stale, like it hadn't moved all night. Her duffel bag sat on the bed, still zipped, still full. Why leave everything behind? I reached for the bag but stopped when I saw the walls. There were marks on them, tiny scratches at eye level, hundreds of them, each one a short line. No more than an inch long, carved lightly into the paint, rows and rows and rows, all horizontal, all perfectly parallel, like someone running their fingernail across the wall. Every time they had the urge to blink, a chill ran up my spine. I checked the bathroom. Next. Empty. Shower dry. But the mirror, Jesus. The mirror was covered with smudges, oily, circular smears, 4 inches apart. each one shaped like the imprint of an eye pressed up against the glass. Over and over and over. I touched one. It was warm. I went back to the duffel bag. My stomach twisted as I unzipped it, half expecting something living, something decaying. Instead, I found 3 identical pale blue hoodies, 2 pairs of jeans, a hairbrush with not a single strand of hair, a blank notebook, a sealed envelope with my name written on it. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded neatly. No handwriting, just a printed line. Thank you for letting me watch. I dropped the paper. My chest tightened because it wasn't gratitude. It was confirmation. She hadn't come for shelter. She hadn't come for a room. She'd come to watch. To study, to mimic, to learn. And she'd been doing it long before she spoke a single word to us. I called my husband. No, he said immediately. Don't open anything else. Leave the house. I'm coming home. But before I could answer him, something caught my eye. A shape in the backyard. Standing behind the guest house. Still. Tall. Facing us. I stepped to the window. The figure didn't move, didn't sway, didn't breathe, just watched me from the shadow of the oak tree. Whispered into the phone, "She's here." She stepped forward. Not fast, not slow, just deliberate, like she was moving with specific instructions. And as she came into the sunlight, I saw her face. Not the one I'd met. Not exactly. Her skin was tighter, her smile too wide. Her eyes, oh God, her eyes were wrong, not round, not human. They were glossy, oversized, and perfectly still, like polished stones trying to imitate something alive. And she still didn't blink. Not once. She stopped at the edge of the yard, tilted her head at an angle no neck should manage without snapping, then said, in a soft, emotionless voice, "I needed new eyes." I took a step back. "What do you want?" I whispered. She smiled again, but this time her jaw opened further than it should, her lips stretching, skin tight, teeth too uniform to see the way you see. Her gaze flicked past me. To the house, to the bedrooms, to the mirrors, to places she had no reason to know existed. "You blink," she said. "I don't. I needed to learn how." My blood froze. "Why?" Her face twitched, like she didn't understand the question. Then, "I need to pass." My throat closed. "Pass as what? Human? Alive? Safe?" She stepped forward again, and I stumbled away from the window. She reached the back door, stopped, pressed her palm flat against the wood. Her hand was cold. So cold, the glass frosted beneath it. She leaned in, staring into the house, straight at me. Her breath hit the window, not fogging it, frosting it, a thin layer of white ice forming around her mouth level. Then she whispered, "Let me in." Just 3 words. Soft. Patient. Wrong. I didn't move, didn't breathe. She watched me. Never blinking, never shifting, until her head snapped toward the driveway. Car. Engine. My husband. He was pulling in fast. She stepped back. Not startled, not scared, just calmly stepping out of sight. Behind the guest house. As if she knew she had time. As if she wasn't done. My husband rushed in, grabbed my arm, and pulled me away from the window. "What happened? Where is she?" I pointed to the yard. Empty. She was gone, just like before. No footprints, no shadow, no sign she'd ever been there. Except the frost on the glass, the scratches on the wall, the letter, and the way the air still felt cold, like something had been breathing behind me. We called the police. They searched the property. They searched the woods. They asked about her last name, her phone number, her ID. Everything she gave us was fake. The number disconnected, the address non-existent, the name unregistered. The ID photo matched no one in any system. The cops Shrugged. Probably some drifter, one said. She. Move on, said another. My husband nodded. I didn't. Because drifters blink, people blink, animals blink, everything. Alive blinks. Except her. That was 6 days ago. The guest house has been empty since. We keep the doors locked, windows shut, lights on. But last night at 2:13 a.m. I woke up to a sound, not footsteps, not knocking. Clicking. Like fingernails tapping glass. Sat up and listened. The sound moved across the backyard. Windows. Tap. Tap. Then across the living room window. Then we moved in when I was 21. Fresh out of college, ready to start our lives. Me, Anna, and our rescue dog, Duffy. A little 2-bedroom rental in a quiet neighborhood. Trimmed lawns, cracked sidewalks, friendly waves from neighbors watering flowers. The couple next door was the first to greet us. Peter and Marie, married. Polite, well-dressed in a way that felt a little timeless. Peter wore button-downs tucked into ironed jeans. Marie wore dresses and pearls, even to check the mail. Anna whispered that they looked like they'd walked out of a vintage magazine ad. I laughed, said they were sweet. But even back then, even on that first day, something about them felt off. It wasn't their friendliness. It was how precise they were. Same greeting every morning. Beautiful day, isn't it? Same wave, same posture, same forced, closed-lip smile. I told Anna. It was just routine. Some people are like that. Repetitive, predictable. But after 3 years of living next to them, they hadn't changed. Not their voices, not their hair, not a single wrinkle. Peter still jogged every morning at 6:02 sharp. Same white sneakers, same navy WINDBREAK. Marie still tended her roses with gloved hands and humming on her breath. Always the same song. A slow, old melody I couldn't place. And one day Anna said, "Does it ever seem like they don't sleep?" I didn't notice at first. But she was right. Their bedroom lights were never on at night. Their windows never flickered with blue TV glow. Their blinds always shut tight, perfectly even. Sometimes I'd get up at 3 or 4 a.m. to let Duffy out, and I'd look over, and Marie would already be outside, standing motionless in her garden. Not weeding, not watering. Just standing, like she forgot what she came outside to do. Like she didn't know how to go back inside. Year 5 is when it really started getting to me. I noticed a photo on our fridge from our first year. Anna holding Duffy as a puppy. I was 22. My hairline was better. We looked young. I realized Peter and Marie looked exactly the same as they did back then. Then I dug through our junk drawer and found a mailer from the HOA Welcome Committee. It had photos of every house, each family posing out front. Ours, new renters, 2008. Peter and Marie's. Same spot, same pose. Peter in the navy windbreaker, Marie in the same pale blue dress. They hadn't aged a day. Maybe they're just aging really well, Anna said. Both of them? I asked. For nearly 16 years? They have good genes? But even she didn't believe it. That night, I stayed up, watched their house from the window. At 3:14 a.m. Their porch light flicked on. Not motion activated. No one was outside. It turned on, then off, on, off. Every 3 seconds, like a metronome, like a signal. I didn't tell Anna everything, not yet, but I started watching more closely. Peter always left at 6:02 a.m. Always. He'd jog 1 block south, then west, then disappear behind the tall hedges that bordered the park. 20 minutes later, he'd return, not sweating, not winded. Just back. Once, I followed him. He turned the corner by the park and never came out the other side. I waited. 10 minutes, 15. Finally, I rounded the corner myself. No one. Nothing. He'd vanished. I told myself to let it go. What was I going to do? Accuse them of being vampires? We had bills, jobs. Life was stressful enough. But then, in year 17, Anna got pregnant. And that's when things escalated. Marie brought us a gift the day after we announced it on social media, a small box, wrapped in white paper. No tag. Inside was a silver rattle. Old-fashioned, polished. Too heavy for a baby. Anna smiled politely. But when she left, she whispered, "Did you hear what she said?" "What?" "She didn't say congratulations." I frowned. "What did she say?" "She said, you'll be different now." Later that week, I caught Peter staring at our living room window. Not standing on his porch. In our yard. Not moving. Just watching. His eyes didn't blink. His hands were clasped behind his back. He didn't seem angry. Just patient, like he was waiting. That night, Anna told me something I can't forget. "I don't think they're together." "What do you mean?" "They sleep in different rooms." I blinked. "How do you know?" "I saw. Last week. I dropped something behind their trash bins and bent down to get it, and I could see through the window. She sleeps in the guest room. No blanket. Just lays there on top of the bed." "Sleeping?" Anna shook her head, staring at the ceiling. By then, we were both scared. Duffy started barking randomly at night, facing the back wall of our bedroom like something was behind it. I installed a camera facing our front yard. It caught movement every night around 3 a.m. But not a car. Not an animal, just a flicker, a shape, standing in the shadows between our houses for exactly 11 minutes. Then vanishing. Every night. 11 minutes. Never more. Never less. One morning, I snapped. Peter was out front. As usual, jogging, smiling. Still 35 years old. I walked straight up to him. "What are you?" I asked. He didn't miss a beat. "Neighbor," he said. "That's not an answer." He tilted his head. Time passes differently for some of us. Then he smiled, not polite, not pleasant, a knowing smile. "You'll understand soon." And he jogged away. Part 2. After Peter said that, "You'll understand soon," I didn't go back inside right away. I just stood in the driveway, staring at their house. That perfect, quiet home where nothing ever changed, where curtains never shifted and shadows never moved. Anna called out from the front door, asking if I was okay. I lied and said yes, but I wasn't, not even close, because for the first time in 17 years, I knew without a doubt Peter and Ari weren't like us. And whatever they weren't finished with us. That night, Anna had a nightmare. She shot upright in bed, shaking. Her hands were cold, eyes wide. She kept saying one thing over and over: the baby was born with no face. She said it saw her anyway, that it opened its mouth, but made no sound. I held her until she calmed down. But when I looked at the baby monitor on the nightstand, it was on, but we didn't own one yet. It blinked green. Then it went dark. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Instead, I sat at the window with a flashlight and a kitchen knife, watching the strip of lawn between our house and theirs. At 3 a.m. sharp, something shifted, a soft movement, like grass being parted. And then there he was. Peter. Not walking this time. Standing. In the space between our homes, facing the side of our house, perfectly still, head slightly tilted. Like he could hear us breathing. He stayed for exactly 11 minutes, then turned around and stepped backward into the dark, gone again. Like clockwork. The next day, I did what I should have done years ago. I started digging. Property records, old neighborhood maps, historical registries, and that's when I found it. The house next door, Peter and Marie's, was built in 1922, and according to the town archives, it was first owned by a Mr. P. Merrill and his wife. Same names. Same initials. No resale records. No sales tax history. No occupants listed since 1922. Just them. For over 100 years, I dug deeper. Local legend stuff. Weird history forums. Scans of old newsletters. And I found a name. The Marrow Watchers. A fringe group. Never large enough to make national news, but big enough for the local library to have a red folder full of newspaper clippings, all dated between 1956 and 1973. According to the articles, they believed in a type of preservation, a ritual or method of stalling decay, of escaping time. Not eternal youth, not quite immortality, just staying the same. One quote stood out. They wait beside others, copying life until something changes. And when it changes, they feed. I showed all of it to Anna. She didn't argue. She didn't laugh. She just looked at me and whispered, "We're what's changed." The baby, that's what they were waiting for. Not us. Not the house. The baby, something new, something fresh, a new start. They were waiting to feed. The next day, Marie knocked on the door. Anna froze in the hallway. I opened it. She stood there in her pale blue dress, holding a small wooden box. "I thought this might be helpful," she said. I didn't take it. "What is it?" She smiled, that smooth, wrinkleless smile. "Something to protect the child." I didn't speak. Then she added, "You don't want to be like us." Her tone changed on that last word, like it was heavier, sadder. Warning. I took the box. She turned and walked away. Inside, the box held a thin silver chain with a small charm, a tiny sun, etched with a symbol I didn't recognize. On the back, in faint, almost invisible letters, "Time is the gate." Anna didn't want it in the house. I didn't blame her. We burned it that night. 2 days later, Anna started spotting. We rushed to the hospital. The baby was okay, but the doctor said she needed rest. No stress. No sudden movements. We were halfway back to the car when I saw Marie, standing in the hospital parking lot, hands folded, head tilted. Not looking at Anna. Looking directly at me. No smile this time. Just staring. Like she knew. That night I stayed up again. At 3 a.m. Peter appeared. But this time, he was closer. Not in the yard. Not in the shadow, right at our bedroom window. I grabbed the flashlight, shined it on him. He didn't flinch, didn't blink. Just stared at me through the glass. And then he whispered. I couldn't hear it, but I read his lips. "Let us in." I'd never felt fear like that in my life. Not when Anna miscarried our first. Not when I lost my job. This was primal. I slammed the blinds shut, sat in the dark, clutching the kitchen knife. But they never knocked. They didn't have to, because they were already inside.